I was halfway through cleaning up a backlog of vendor invoices when the email hit. Subject line, confidential, do not share. Problem was, it was shared with the entire ops team. Kyle Murphy from HR had fat-fingered the recipient list and blasted out a spreadsheet that was obviously never meant for our eyes. I clicked it out of habit, expecting a quick follow-up message recalling it. Didn't happen. Instead, I sat there, cold coffee in my hand, staring at line after line of salary data. Names I knew, people I'd trained, people who still came to me with questions like I was some Wikipedia page for finance operations. Mason Richards, 2 years in, $143,000. Trevor Adams, 8 months, $139,000. Victoria Lane, maybe 13 months on the job, $140,500. Me, 11 years, $129,000. I'm Brad Patterson, by the way. 44 years old, been at this company for over a decade. Got a wife, Linda, and 2 kids. Austin's a junior at Alabama studying finance, and Taylor's finishing up her senior year. Already got acceptance letters from 3 good schools, including Vanderbilt. Point is, I'm not some fresh-faced kid figuring out life. I've been building systems, training people, keeping this place running while others got the credit and apparently the money. I blinked a few times like maybe I'd read it wrong. Then I looked up. Mason was across the room, feet kicked up on his desk, laughing at some YouTube video. This was the same guy who asked me last week what a deferred asset was. I had to explain it to him using a whiteboard and 4 bullet points, and he was making over $40,000 more than me. But here's the thing that really got to me. Austin had texted me that morning asking about $500 for interview suits for his Goldman Sachs internship application. Taylor was posting Instagram stories from her Vanderbilt campus visit, talking about how much she loved the business program. Every month, I'm transferring $1,200 to Austin for living expenses and putting away another $800 for Taylor's tuition fund. At 44, with 2 kids heading toward expensive futures, that $40,000 gap wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. That was opportunities for my children. That evening, Linda was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked through the door. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "Bad day?" she asked, not looking up from the stove. "You could say that." I sat down at the kitchen table and rubbed my eyes. Found out today that Mason Richards is making $143,000. Trevor Adams, that kid who's been here 8 months, is pulling in $139,000. Linda stopped stirring and turned around. "And you're making $129,000 after 11 years. She didn't say anything for a minute, just stood there processing it. Linda's no pushover, and she's been working in marketing for 15 years, knows how corporate games work. But this was different. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to just sit here and accept it." Austin called during dinner. "Dad, quick question about my internship applications. Goldman wants to know about any relevant coursework. Should I mention that derivatives class?" "Absolutely," I said. "And make sure you understand DCF modeling before the interview." "That's going to come up." After we hung up, Linda looked at me across the table. "He sounds just like you when you talk about work. All that technical stuff, kid's got a good head for numbers. Always has." I paused. "He deserves every opportunity we can give him. So does Taylor. And so do you." That night, instead of watching TV or going to bed early like usual, I sat down with my laptop and called Cal Brooks. Cal's my old MBA classmate from Auburn, been CFO at a Fortune 500 manufacturing company for the last 6 years. If anyone would know real market rates, it was him. "Brad," he said after I explained the situation, "with your experience and track record, Atlanta market rate is minimum $160,000 to $180,000 for someone with your background. What the hell are they paying you?" When I told him, the silence on the other end said everything. "Brother," he finally said, "you're not just underpaid. You're being taken advantage of. How long has this been going on?" 11 years of 3% annual raises while I trained people who jumped ahead of me in 8 months. Cal whistled low. "You know what this sounds like? They've got you classified as a lifer. Someone who'll never leave so they don't have to compete for you. Classic corporate mistake. What would you do? Document everything. Build a case. Show them exactly what you're worth in hard numbers. And Brad, start looking around. Even if you don't take anything, knowing you have options changes how you negotiate." After we hung up, I made the decision. I wasn't going to beg for fairness or wait for someone to recognize my value. I was going to document it, quantify it, and present it like the business case it was. If they wanted to play hardball, I'd show them what professional hardball looked like. I started building a spreadsheet, but this one wasn't for work. This one was for war. I worked through the night, didn't even stand up except to refill my coffee. The document grew hour by hour. Not some half-hearted complaint letter, but a full operational analysis showing exactly what I'd done, what I'd created, and how much money I'd saved this company. Each year got its own tab. 2013, junior analyst, built the first version of our automated reconciliation tool from scratch. The same tool they still use today, processing over $50 million in transactions monthly. 2014 flagged a vendor double invoicing scheme that would have cost us over $600,000 if I hadn't been paying attention. No bonus, not even a thank you email. 2015 to 2020, system overhauls, process documentation, clean audits, team transitions. Every time someone quit, I picked up the slack. Trained the new kid, smiled through it, kept the lights on. 2021, handled a six-figure reconciliation project solo during a system migration that upper management swore would need a team of 4. Got it done under budget, ahead of deadline. Around 2 a.m., I paused and looked at the family photo on my desk. Linda asleep upstairs, Austin probably cramming for his finance midterm, Taylor working on college application essays. These kids needed to see their father wasn't someone who accepted unfairness lying down. I kept typing. 2022 was the year that really proved my worth. Caught an error in our forecasting model that would have caused a supply chain overbuy of over $900,000 in dead inventory. Spotted it with a red pen and 15 years of experience reading financial projections. The CFO at the time called it excellent catch in the quarterly meeting, then promptly forgot about it when review time came around. By 4 a.m., I had it all laid out. The hidden cost of loyalty. A financial and operational impact analysis, 51 pages of documented value creation. Every claim backed by documentation, every number verified against company records. Final calculation, $387,500 in measurable savings and improvements over the last 12 months alone. My salary gap for that same period? $39,100. I printed the whole thing at the 24-hour FedEx downtown, got it professionally bound with a clear cover. Title page in bold, The Hidden Cost of Loyalty, a financial and operational impact analysis. My name right underneath it. Before 6 a.m., I was back home, shower running, getting ready for what I knew was going to be a different kind of Tuesday. I put on my charcoal suit with the blue pinstripe, same one I wore when I presented quarterly results to the Auburn Alumni Investment Committee 3 years back. Not because I was nervous, but because it reminded me who I am when I stopped making excuses for other people's poor decisions. At 7:20 on the dot, I walked into the building like it was any other day. Took the elevator up to the executive floor, ignored the receptionist who tried to ask if I had an appointment, and went straight to Gerald Hoffman's office. Gerald wasn't in yet. Guy never showed up before 8:30. Didn't matter. I dropped 3 things on his desk. My resignation letter, signed and dated. A formal job offer from Meridian Advisory Group that Cal had helped me secure. $150,000 base, plus full benefits. And my report. No sticky note, no explanation, no dramatic gesture, just the facts laid out professionally. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and started going through emails like nothing had happened. 2 seats down, Mason was arguing with his monitor about some formula not working. Same formula I'd built 6 months ago and documented in the shared drive he never bothered to check. Trevor was pacing around on a call trying to sound important to whoever was listening. Victoria had her AirPods in, clicking around in some template I'd written last quarter. I didn't say a word to any of them. Just kept working on the month-end close like I had for the past 11 years. I wasn't there to cause drama or make a scene. I was there to prove a point. And by the time anyone realized what was happening, the point would already be made. At exactly 10:04 a.m., I got the ping. Ray Walsh, conference room Elm now. Ray's been my direct manager for 3 years now. One of those guys who delegates everything and takes credit when it works out. The Elm Room was one of those tree-named conference rooms they thought made the office feel warm and inviting. Today it felt more like an interrogation room. I stood up, grabbed my notebook like I was heading into any other project meeting, and walked down the hall. Inside, Gerald Hoffman was sitting at the head of the table, Ray 2 seats down looking like he'd seen a ghost. Kyle Murphy had his laptop open but wasn't typing, and Miranda Cole, our COO, sat with her arms crossed, face completely unreadable. In front of them, my report was open halfway through, pages already marked up with sticky notes. Gerald looked up and gestured toward the empty chair across from him. I stayed standing. He cleared his throat and tried his executive voice. "Your analysis is quite comprehensive, Brad." I nodded once. So is my tenure. That shut him up fast. I could see Kyle starting to sweat. his fingers twitching like he wanted to jump in and smooth everything over with corporate speak and policy references. I think this might be a case of outdated HR records and some context missing from our compensation review process, Kyle started, already reaching for his standard playbook. I'm not asking for anything, I cut in. I've already made my decision. Ray perked up then, probably thinking he could slide in and fix this with some manager-to-employee heart-to-heart. He leaned forward with that fake concern look I'd seen him use in performance reviews. Brad, you've always been solid, absolutely solid. But you know how raises work around here. 3% annual is standard across the board. Company policy. Mason Richards got 52% above standard when he was hired, I said. Trevor Adams got 47% above standard for his starting salary. Victoria Lane got 49% above standard. And they're all people I personally trained on systems I built. Ray leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from fake concern to something closer to panic. Gerald sighed and folded his hands like he was dealing with a particularly difficult child who didn't understand how the real world worked. Let me ask you this, Gerald said, trying to sound reasonable. What would it take for you to reconsider? What would make you stay? I didn't hesitate. I'd thought about this moment during my 4 a.m. coffee break. Salary adjustment to $155,000 to reflect current market rates, back pay differential for the last fiscal year, and a comprehensive internal pay equity review across the entire department. Kyle actually gasped like I'd asked for his firstborn child. Miranda didn't say anything, just kept staring at me like she was running calculations in her head, probably trying to figure out what it would cost to replace me versus what it would cost to keep me. Gerald scratched his jaw the way he did when quarterly numbers came in below forecast. You're asking for quite a significant adjustment. No, I said, keeping my voice level and professional. I'm asking for what I'm worth based on market rates and documented performance. What I should have been making for the last 3 years if anyone had been paying attention. The room went dead quiet for about 10 seconds. Finally, Gerald leaned forward and put his elbows on the table like he was about to negotiate a major contract. We'll need 24 hours to discuss this internally, run it through the proper channels. I shook my head. You've got until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. After that, the resignation stands and I start at Meridian on Monday. This isn't a negotiation, it's a business decision. Kyle looked like he wanted to say something about process and procedures, but Gerald waved him off before he could start. You'll hear from us soon, Gerald said. I nodded once and walked out without another word. I went back to my desk like nothing had happened. Sat down, opened up the month-end close schedule, checked off the first 3 items like it was any other Tuesday. They were probably in there right now, scrambling around, wondering how they'd missed this for so long, wondering what else they didn't know about their own operation. But me? I'd already moved on mentally. The funny thing about finally standing up for yourself is how clear everything becomes afterward. I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't frustrated. I was just done playing a rigged game. They didn't wait 24 hours. At 1:23 p.m., 3 hours after I walked out of the Elm Room, Ray showed up at my desk looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Conference room Maple, he mumbled, already regretting whatever conversation was coming next. This time they brought reinforcements. Frederick Bannister, company counsel, was already seated when I walked in. Blue suit, expensive watch, practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Gerald and Miranda sat across from him, shoulders tight like they were bracing for impact. Kyle was nowhere to be seen, probably off updating his resume. Rick stood up when I entered, extending his hand like we were old friends meeting for lunch. Brad, appreciate you taking the time. I didn't shake his hand. Just sat down and waited to see what they thought they could offer me. Gerald cleared his throat and tried his smooth executive voice again. We took your concerns seriously, ran everything through legal and HR. He slid a folder across the table. This is our revised offer. I opened it and started reading. Senior Director of Financial Operations, base salary $155,000, performance bonus structure up to $25,000 annually, access to executive meetings, strategic planning initiatives, internal audit oversight committee. It was everything I'd asked for, and then some. Almost too generous, actually, which made me wonder what else was coming. Then Rick pulled another folder out of his briefcase and set it in front of me like it was just standard paperwork. This is an updated confidentiality agreement given your new position and access to sensitive financial information. I flipped it open and started reading through the standard language. Employment terms, proprietary information, non-compete clauses, all normal stuff until I got to page 6. There it was, buried in the middle of a paragraph about reporting obligations. Specific language about compensation structures, financial irregularities, an external reporting of unusual patterns or discrepancies. I looked up at Rick, who was trying very hard to look casual. You're making this promotion conditional on me signing additional restrictions about financial reporting. Not at all, Rick said smoothly. Just routine updates for executive-level positions. Standard practice across the industry. But here's the thing about being a financial analyst for 11 years. You develop a nose for when something doesn't smell right. And this whole situation reeked. See, for the last year and a half, I'd been tracking vendor payments that didn't add up. Not mistakes, patterns. Amounts that were slightly off, approval chains that didn't make sense, purchase orders that got rushed through with weak justifications. Most people wouldn't notice, or if they did, they'd assume it was just corporate inefficiency. But when you've been doing this work as long as I have, you can spot the difference between incompetence and something deliberate. Fake company names with P. Box addresses. Rounding errors that always went the same direction. Transfers signed off by the same two people every time, usually Rick Bannister and whoever happened to be the mid-level manager that month. I'd been cataloging it all, not because I was looking for trouble, but because that's what good analysts do. We notice patterns. I closed both folders and stood up. I'll need time to review these thoroughly. Give me until tomorrow morning. Of course, Rick nodded, but I could see something flicker across his face. Just let us know by 9 a.m. I took both folders and left without another word. Soon as I got back to my desk, I sent a text to Cal. They bit. Legal complications included. Proceeding as discussed. His reply came back almost instantly. Perfect. You've got this. That evening, Linda was waiting for me in the kitchen with a glass of wine already poured. She'd seen the folders I brought home and knew something big was happening. So, she said, not even pretending to be casual about it, they offered me everything I asked for. Director position, $155,000, bonuses, the whole package. That's great! Then she saw my expression. Isn't it? I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the legal folder. They also want me to sign this. Take a look at page 6, that paragraph about financial reporting restrictions. Linda's been around corporate America long enough to read between the lines. She scanned through it, her expression getting more serious as she went. Brad, this looks like they're trying to stop you from reporting something. What aren't you telling me? So I told her about the vendor payments that didn't add up, the fake companies, the approval patterns I'd been tracking, about how the NDA timing wasn't coincidental. You think they're stealing? She asked. I think someone is. And they think I know more than I'm letting on. Linda set down her wine glass and looked at me across the table. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out exactly what they're hiding. And then I'm going to decide whether I want to be part of covering it up or part of exposing it. I spent that night pulling transaction records, cross-referencing vendor registrations, tracking down approval chains. What I found made everything click into place. There was a holding company called Pinarove Partners that looked legitimate on paper. Business address in Delaware, proper documentation, clean filing history. But when I dug deeper into the public records, the registered agent was someone named Timothy Bannister, Rick Bannister's brother-in-law. And those quarterly budget adjustments that Rick had been authorizing over the past 18 months, they matched the Pinarove payments exactly. Not close, not approximately, exactly. 3 separate times down to the penny. $2.7 million over 18 months. Not all at once, nothing dramatic enough to trigger automatic audits. Just steady, consistent bleeding that stayed just under the thresholds where anyone would look twice. Smart, actually. If I hadn't been looking for patterns, I probably would have missed it completely. But I wasn't missing it now. And they'd just handed me an NDA that would prevent me from ever talking about it. I printed everything. Bank records, vendor registrations, approval chains, email threads where managers pushed payments through with questionable explanations. By Wednesday morning, I had a complete paper trail showing exactly how they were doing it and exactly who was involved. Day 15, technically past my original resignation date, but they'd asked me to attend one final meeting to wrap everything up. Kyle had called it closing the loop in his email, like we were putting a nice bow on some HR transition package. What they didn't realize was that bow was actually a noose, and I'd already tied the knot. Conference room cedar this time, bigger than elm, more windows, more space for what was about to happen. Gerald was already there trying to look relaxed in his Patagonia vest over a dress shirt. Rick sat next to him, quiet, flipping through a legal pad like he was prepping for a deposition. Miranda stood near the windows with her arms crossed, looking exhausted. There was a screen set up at the end of the table, and a few seconds after I walked in, the video call connected. Amelia Foster, chair of the board of directors. No smile, no small talk, straight to business like always. "Let's get started," she said from the screen. Gerald stood up and tried his polished executive routine. "Thanks for your patience, Brad. We wanted to finalize everything and make sure we're all aligned moving forward with your transition." I cut him off and dropped a slim black folder on the table in front of them. "Before we finalize anything, you've got a $2.7 million embezzlement problem." The room went dead quiet. Gerald froze halfway between sitting and standing. Rick's pen clattered onto the table. I opened the folder and laid out the first page. A transaction map going back 18 months. Every suspicious payment highlighted and cross-referenced. Fake vendors, box addresses. Amounts that stayed just under internal audit thresholds. "Next page," I said, flipping the sheet over. "Vendor identification numbers created manually, outside the normal procurement system, all approved by the same authorization chain." Rick straightened up in his chair, trying to look confused instead of caught. "I've never seen this analysis before." "That's interesting," I said, sliding the next document across the table. "Because this company, Pinarove Partners, is registered to Timothy Bannister. Public filing, State of Delaware. Your brother-in-law, Rick." I could see Miranda putting it together in real time, her expression shifting from tired to horrified. Gerald looked like someone had just told him the building was on fire. "Final page," I continued, showing them the smoking gun. "Your signature, Rick. Right here. Authorizing quarterly budget adjustments that match the Pinarove payments exactly. 3 separate times over the past 18 months. Rick stood up fast, knocking his chair back. "This is circumstantial at best. You're making connections that don't exist." "It's documented evidence," I said. "Numbers don't lie, Rick. Unlike people." Amelia Foster's voice cut through the tension from the screen. "We'll be bringing in external auditors immediately. Rick, you're not to leave this building. Security will escort you to the legal department for questioning." Rick tried to push past Gerald toward the door, probably thinking he could talk his way out of it somehow. "Gerald, you know I would never compromise this company's integrity." "Stop talking," Gerald said, but Rick was already at the door where 2 security guards were waiting. "I know my rights here," Rick said, his voice getting higher. "You can't just accuse me without proper evidence." One of the guards gestured politely. "Sir, let's discuss this with the legal team downstairs." They walked him out while the rest of us sat there in stunned silence. Amelia broke it first. "Brad, I need everything you have sent to our audit committee today. All documentation, all analysis, everything." "You'll have it within an hour," I said. Gerald slumped in his chair like someone had let all the air out of him. "How long have you known?" "I've been tracking irregularities for over a year. The full scope became clear when you handed me that NDA yesterday." And just like that, everything changed. Rick Bannister was terminated that afternoon and escorted from the building with a box of personal items and a criminal referral hanging over his head. 2 mid-level managers, Amanda Torres and Josh Phillips, were suspended pending the investigation. Turned out they'd been approving payments without proper verification, though whether they were involved or just negligent remained to be seen. Gerald lasted about 6 months before the board forced him out. Not fired exactly, but stepped down to pursue other opportunities according to the press release everyone saw through. Miranda Cole quit before the acquisition talks got serious, left behind a brief resignation email and a desk full of files nobody wanted to inherit. Ray Walsh kept his job, technically, but they stripped him of any real authority and moved him to a technical role processing expense reports. Last I heard, he was still there, same cubicle by the printer, same parking spot, just without the title or the respect. Meanwhile, I started my first day at Meridian Advisory exactly when I said I would. Corner office with my nameplate already installed. Bradley Patterson, Chief Financial Officer. Cal Brooks met me in the hallway with coffee and that grin I remembered from business school. "Ready to build something honest?" he asked. "Been ready for 11 years. Within 6 months, we'd acquired 3 major clients from my old firm. Companies I'd actually been managing their accounts for years, just without the credit or compensation. By year-end, Atlanta Business Chronicle named us Best Mid-Size Firm for Financial Transparency and Client Relations. I didn't just take the recognition, I earned it by building systems that deserved it. Open salary bands posted quarterly so nobody has to guess what their colleagues make. Performance reviews with actual metrics and clear advancement criteria. Anonymous whistleblower policy with direct board access. Internal audit processes that work the first time. Austin finished his internship at Raymond James last summer and got a full-time offer before his senior year started. Dad, he called me to say, "My supervisor mentioned you guys at Meridian have a great reputation in the industry. Says you do business the right way." That felt better than any bonus check I never received. Taylor's a sophomore at Vanderbilt now, double majoring in business and economics like she planned. She calls sometimes for help with financial analysis homework. Dad, can you explain how merger arbitrage works? Sweetheart, I tell her, let me explain how real leverage works. It's knowing your value and having the backbone to demand it. These days, Meridian has 52 employees across 4 offices. Revenue hit 8 figures last year, and we're opening locations in Nashville and Charlotte next quarter. But what I'm proudest of isn't the growth or the revenue numbers. It's the culture we built where nobody gets overlooked, nobody trains their replacement just to watch them get promoted ahead, and nobody works for 11 years wondering if they're being taken advantage of. Brothers, if you're over 40 and still explaining your value to people young enough to be your children, you're playing the wrong game. Stop asking for what you deserve. Document it, quantify it, and demand it. And if they won't pay what you're worth, build something better. Your family's watching? Your kids need to see their father doesn't accept second-class treatment. That's not revenge. That's evolution. That's what men do when they stop making excuses and start making moves. Sometimes I drive past my old building and see familiar cars still in the lot at 7 p.m. Same people, same grind, same hope that loyalty will eventually pay off. It won't. But building something worth your time will.